It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Brant Herman, co-founder and CEO. He is the visionary leader of MouthWatch, which visually connects patients to care with intraoral cameras and teledentistry solutions that bring patients, providers, and treatment together. MouthWatch develops turnkey teledentistry and intraoral camera solutions that allow dentists and hygienists here in the United States and internationally to communicate more effectively with their patients in the dental chair or anywhere. Their high-quality, affordable intraoral cameras, chairside dental viewers, and ease of integration with all leading dental imaging platforms put the power of intraoral imaging into every dental practice. MouthWatch's powerful teledentistry platform enables live streaming, interactive, and asynchronous store and forward consultations that improve care, boost practice efficiency, and increase access to dental care for patients in any location. For clinics, public health programs, nursing homes, managed care settings, private practices, dental schools, and other healthcare providers, teledentistry is the key to increase access to care. And by the way, if you're a new listener, there's no commercials here. No one pays me to get on the show. I have people that want to be on the show. I could do a podcast every day for a year just on people standing on the list. I actually wanted Brant to come on because he's one of the biggest names in teledentistry. So my viewers, about a quarter of them are still in dental kindergarten school. So let's start with the basics. What the heck is teledentistry?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's an honor, buddy.
So teledentistry is really, we think, a game-changing technology. It allows providers to communicate and collaborate in really quick, effective, easy ways to share all of the clinical data that you would normally share within a practice. So it opens up opportunities for hygienists to see patients in different settings. It can improve the referral process between a GP to a specialist. It can change the way a growing practice helps supervise and present treatment plans to patients. So all kinds of ways. Once you take that digital technology, you add some security around it and allow, just like we're doing here, a live video consult that might extend to a patient, or allow you to kind of easily take all of the information from a series of appointments during the day. And then when a doctor gets home, they could sit, review, and do a treatment plan to get that patient connected into a practice.
And I look at you, I study you as a person. You've always thought outside the box. I mean, you're born and raised in New York, and you decide that you're going to go to 4 years of college in Sweden. Where the heck did that come from? It had to have been the hottest girl in your class said she was going to go over there and study. So you just followed her. That makes the most sense. Is that what happened?
That was not what happened. So I started a couple of years in Sonoma County in Northern California, and I was studying organic chemistry and just had a bad exam and thought, let's go see what else is out there. Applied for the international program, went to Sweden for a year, had a great time, and studied kind of organizational communications, international communications, and came back and started at the .com boom in San Francisco with some online auction companies, and really got the bug for starting my own businesses there.
And it's kind of interesting. So you mind I ask, how old are you now?
I'm 44.
So these young kids in dental school, they didn't see the 94 to 2000 internet bubble pop Y2K. And then 10 years after that, we had the Lehman's Brother, and it's been another 10 years. Yeah. You're a smart guy, been in the space for 2 expansions and contractions. Does it kind of smell like teen spirit to you? Does it kind of smell like 1999 again? Or Lehman's Day again?
I think there's a much broader acceptance of technology now. I think there's smarter investment in companies that are launching technology products, and it's so ubiquitous. I mean, I think everything there required a browser on your Netscape Navigator on your laptop that wasn't really powered enough. So much is now available on your smartphone, and it's just ever present for consumers' lives, providers' lives, professionals at every turn.
And so, if a new technology comes out, say Einstein's equals MC squared, it could be positive with nuclear medicine and nuclear energy, and it could be bad with bombs. Teledentistry, what is this going to bring? What's going to be the nuclear medicine and energy out of teledentistry, and what is going to be the scary stuff that the dentist don't like?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think what we see is The term teledentistry, talking about it in that way, in 10 years, we think that's going to disappear. We think it's really going to become so integral and integrated into how a practice operates that considering it this different technological approach is going to go to the wayside. It's really going to be just a way that's as obvious as day to communicate information about a patient case. As long as that security surrounds it and the workflows are really effective and tailored to it, I don't think it's going to be considered such a far-fetched Star Trek technology. I think some of the challenges and fears that we hear about it are really more on the home aligner approach, where dentists feel like they're being left out of the loop, that clinicians aren't being connected to patients. That's a key part and a big differentiator for what we do with Teledent, which is our platform, is our platform's really focused on provider to provider and then to patients. So we always want to make sure a dentist is at the center of teledentistry and that they're able to tap into new markets, reach new patients, make it really convenient to bring in patients into their practice, not to eliminate it so that you've got a command center where one dentist or one ortho is providing treatment plans for vast numbers of patients without ever physically encountering them.
So let's be clear. So, when intraoral cameras came out, we got to go back all the way to 87. Patterson came out with the Fuji Cam. It was slightly smaller than your kitchen refrigerator and slightly larger than the one in your dorm room. And it was a monster. It was $38,000. And back then, every dentist in Phoenix that I talked to said, that's crazy. I'd never spend that kind of money. And they waited, they thought smartly, as the price went from about $38,000 at Patterson down to about $10,000. Now the next generation, you see that with CAD Cam. They were trying to sell that thing for $145,000 when there's companies out there that can sell better technology for a fraction of that price. But I'm glad I didn't wait 5 years for the price to go from $38,000 to $10,000, because I think I sold about $1 million a year more dentistry. So when intraoral cameras came out, I knew that Sapien was a visual animal. It's not an auditory animal like a bird. And when you would show them that big black hole in their white tooth, they got it. Because the only other deal was to speak Latin and Greek. You need M-O, D-O, and then you got to trust me. Then you're thinking, you're selling me. And so I always thought of intraoral cameras as increasing case acceptance, which the dentists tell you, I don't want to sell dentistry. Okay, then you can't be a good dentist. If 10 kids walk in with a cavity and you only convince one to fill it, 90% of your restorations were never even done. You're horrible. But if you could get all 10 to do it and you remove the decay, I don't even care if you filled the filling with butter. You're certainly better than the dentist across the street. But are you saying that, but now you're taking it to a new level because you're talking about an intraoral camera that the patient takes home, correct?
So that was a while ago that we started with that approach of patients. So when we started the company, our original idea was how can we allow patients to see what they're missing at home? So the original idea was patients had a camera and they communicated with their dentist. They could do self-generated recall. They could monitor healing. We've evolved from that. We saw dentists love our camera. They love the price point. So we focused on the camera getting into every operatory at a price point that's super affordable. Our cameras are $299. They integrate with every X-ray software out there.
That's it? Just $299?
$299.
So it's gone from 38,000 Fuji Cam, thank you, Patterson, to $299?
You got it.
So when will I be pouring out my Captain Crunch in the bowl and one just falls out for free in my Captain Crunch? I can't believe that. Now do you manufacture it, or do you have intellectual property and you outsource it to some Asian manufacturer? Or how does that work?
We work with a contract manufacturer, and then we built our software to allow it to help integrate into the practice management and X-ray software. So it's really easy. There's a lot of affordable cameras that are on eBay or Amazon, but you're going to get support from China. It's not going to integrate. You're just going to basically get a glorified webcam where the color may not be that accurate. It's not going to integrate, and it's going to show a picture, which is still effective, but you're not going to be able to have your clinicians use a button press to capture it right into the patient record.
So our mission at MouthWatch, is to improve oral health around the world through innovative software and products that improve communications, enhance understanding, and facilitate the delivery of dental care. How many of these have you sold over, and how many years? How long have you been selling these, and how many do you think you sold?
Yeah, we've been in business around 8 years. We're probably in over 17,000 practices with the cameras. And it's really been a disruptive approach where a lot of providers love it in that with the older cameras or the more expensive cameras, providers had to make that choice of I'm going to get one and I'm going to put it in whose operatory. So now we see that Hygiene have cameras, every restorative operatory has cameras. So instead of doing this limited resource where it's really effective when patients can see it, every time, every patient, every exam, let's document, let's have them see their teeth on a screen, see the oral health issues, help with education, help with documentation. So we've been really lucky and successful in that, of allowing a practice that used to just have that one that the dentist held on to, the associates didn't want to use, the hygienist didn't want to use because they were nervous about breaking it. Now every room, every op has a camera, and it's really done well. And I think the ease of integrations really made it kind of a no-brainer for a lot of practices.
First of all, I mean, so many things popped in my head when you said that. First of all, moving cameras around. So when you move a camera or whatever it is that you're moving from room to room, you automatically aren't looking at your statement of income. I mean, the dentist on average nets 35%, so that's the cost. Labor is 25%. Now combine labor and yourself, now we're at 55% labor, which is what the S&P 500 is. Then next is lab, 8 to 10. Then supply, 6%. So your best idea, hey, I'm going to take my most expensive cost, a Homo sapien, and have them move this camera around room to room. So then you look at the most genius operators, like Southwest Airlines, a very capital-intensive business, having to buy Boeing 737s for $50 million. Every one of them the same. It's a Boeing 737. Everything's the same. In your operatories, every operatory is a Boeing 737 at Southwest Airlines. And if you ever tell me why you saved money by not having a triturator or a slow speed or an ultrasonic Cavitron or some crazy, insane thing that I know you're going to tell me because you've told me this for 32 years now, you're wrong. Your cost is humans, and you invest in technology and tools to make your humans more efficient. You don't have humans standing around waiting for an object. And every time I walk into a dental office, at least 50% of the time, the dentist is in their private office, and I don't even have to ask what I do just to validate. I say, what are you doing back here? Oh, let me guess. You're waiting for an operatory. You're waiting for a room. We're waiting. Ethel's got to dismiss Joan, and then she's got to clean it up, set it up, and I'm just going to sit back here for half an hour. It's like, what? You add operatories. The dentist who have one operatory that was never used once every other day makes 100,000 more than the others. But the guys who have two extra operatories, they're all netting 350 plus. Chairs are not your cost. In fact, they're the anti-cost. When you have labor waiting for a chair or a camera or anything, you're out of your mind. And if you get all efficient, you're going to squeeze in one more major item a day, root canal, filling, crown, whatever. But I love the fact that your first best idea is let's get the price point so low that we have one in every operatory, because either the protocol is correct, that Homo sapien can see and comprehend and understand and remember 80% visual, 20% audio. And if you're going to sit there and speak Latin and Greek in their ear, you just hang it up now. But when you visually show them and take digital pictures and put them on everything, then you can transfer knowledge to sapien almost instantly. They're like, oh, yeah, I get it. The tooth's white. There's a big black hole. Needs to be fixed. I mean, it's just the only way. And even you talk to a teacher, they say, how do you teach kids? Show, touch, feel. I'm not going to stand up there and give you an audio. It's show, touch, feel. A lot of parents I talk to are like, why is my kid always looking at that smartphone? He should be reading a book. Show me the book you want him to read. Well, I recommended this one. You flip through it, no pictures. And it's like, so it surprises you that your kid would rather watch a video on YouTube than read this black and white textbook? I mean, so you got to go with the flow. You can't fight it. So MouthWatch. So tell me more about your unique selling propositions of what you're trying to do.
Well, I think a key point you brought up of the practice that has that extra operatory can generate more revenue, can see more patients, and can create new opportunities. That's what we're trying to do in a lot of ways with teledentistry. I think with teledent and teledentistry, there's been a long history, well, relatively long in the scheme of things, but for teledentistry to allow in public health programs access to patients who have trouble getting into an office. So that might look like a remote consult. It might look like a hygienist seeing a patient in a nursing home or in a school setting. But the opportunity that's really exciting that a lot more practices and as state legislation allows it, is how does that doctor tap into new patients and create an operatory without having to physically build another room in their practice? So we see a lot of growth in the mobile providers that are going out there, of practices that are launching kind of an on-site hygiene program where they're going into a corporate campus, they're providing preventive care, they're billing their insurance for it, and when there's a need for restorative, they're referring it back into the brick and mortar office. So that's this huge opportunity where teledentistry really facilitates that. And what we want to do is make sure that that patient's experience of the information that was found, the hygienist is providing those services for the preventive care, but that opens all these opportunities for that dentist to present a treatment plan for restorative, to communicate visually with that patient about the need for restorative. And when they want to come in for the filling, the crown, the cosmetic procedure, they know what's happening. They already has been triaged. So everything's able to be identified earlier, and that patient's got a connection with the provider that they may have never met. But then when they go in, they feel comfortable, they've seen the issue, and there's no selling of dentistry. It's just allowing that practice to start working on higher value restorative cases in that operatory that's now full.
So the reason I contacted you and you did not contact me, and is because when you are on Google Teledentistry on Dental Town or intraoral cameras, whatever, your name's all over. I mean, this guy says, best intraoral camera. He says, I am in need of upgrading intraoral cameras. Any thoughts on the best intraoral camera compatible with DEXs? Every post. MouthWatch, I bought 2 recently, around $300 each. Love it. Just more. Also like my MouthWatch. Great support team. Walk you through. You're just crushing it. Why do you think the dentist? The dentist on what was that commercial with the cereal? Have Mikey. Mikey doesn't like anything. What was it? Life cereal? Was it Life?
Yeah,
and so dentists, they're all Mikeys. They don't like anything. They make $200,000 a year with 3-day weekends, and you'd literally think they were coal miners that were not paid. Why do you think these guys like MouthWatch so much? The next guy says, my God, this is great. He goes, another vote for MouthWatch. We have one in every operatory, and we have 25 operatories. Love them. So what do you think? Do you think the price point is the biggest thing? Do you think it's the $299?
Yeah, they're $299. When you buy more than one, you get 10% off. So they're $269. What we think we tapped into is really that dentists got tired of being charged too much just because they were dentists. And we wanted to approach it and say, look, this is an essential tool. This is no longer the optional tool for presenting that high-end cosmetic case. This needs to be documenting new patient exams. When you want to submit a claim, use a picture. If something can't be seen on an x-ray, but you can document it visually, just have these in every room. And I think we get more questions where people are nervous about the low cost as opposed to what they're actually seeing with the quality, the ease of integration, all of that. So I think we've built this really strong fan base because the cameras do a great job of showing patients what they need to see. The integration is key because I've seen $5,000 cameras where dentists are complaining of the image is great when I can get the image to work. So it's not capturing. I have to call in an assistant. She's got to hit the space bar, take a picture. So we want to find all of the ways to really make that experience as easy as possible. And we try to treat the stuff as, go ahead.
No. My granddaughter's trying to say, Raya, what'd you say to Grandpa? Hi, Raya. I sure love you. Grandpa, have a kiss. Okay, I gotta work. I'll be home right when it gets dark. Okay. You good? Okay, love you. Sorry about that. It was a granddaughter interruption. But So continue. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, so I think really just having it work well, work consistently, and be at a price point where they're okay, taking a chance on it. And we get that a lot. We get the doctors like, I'll give it a chance with one, and then they're coming back and they're buying 7. So I think that's the change for a lot of them is I don't need the quality, even though the quality is just the same, it integrates well. These guys treat me with support that I'm not paying for. We remote in, we make sure you're set up and working well. You can call us, you can chat with us. All of the stuff that people come to expect, especially from consumer products, we wanted to offer to professionals at a price point that wasn't outrageous. And then our bigger goal is really having those cameras. A lot of what we do with teledentistry is visual. So if we can get cameras into operatories and start opening minds as to, oh, what could I do to extend this patient's experience now that I have the intraoral camera? That's where we start introducing Teledent. So a big goal for us with Teledent is when I'm creating a treatment plan for a patient and I show them that they need a crown or I show them that they need a rehab of some sort, I could use pictures to share with them so that now they're at home, because when they're sitting in the chair and I'm describing all of these clinical issues that need to be done and how I'm going to take care of it, a lot of that's happening is the patient's hearing the dollar sign and they're kind of tuning out the actual clinical need. So what we like with Teledent is now the patient has a treatment plan with the pictures, with the description of what they need to do. They can go home, they can talk to their spouse, they could look at this, and now they could video conference with the provider or the treatment plan coordinator or someone and say, we have a couple of questions about it, but it's clearly important now that I'm not in the chair, I'm not done with my appointment, and you're telling me all of this stuff that needs to be done.
So, so you've been, how long has this MouthWatch company been around?
We've been around 8 years.
8 years. And
Yep.
so it's an intraoral camera company for 8 years and sold 17,000 of them. So is teledentistry your next big bet? Is that like another product line? Is it what does teledentistry look like now, as opposed to, you weren't thinking about teledentistry 8 years ago, were you?
Well, we were. So when we launched, our first product was taking the camera and having the patient take it home and communicate with the doctor with our software. But we saw the way programs and providers were basically, we love the camera, we want to use them chair side, and we love the software, but for specific types of practices or programs, they were kind of breaking it to make it work the way they needed it to. So instead of it being the patient using it, we had programs where a provider might have 6 locations and they wanted all 6 of those locations to communicate with a central dentist. So that kind of allowed us to evolve. We focused on the cameras. We saw how teledentistry was changing, and we built Teledent. And Teledent is really designed as live video conferencing and store and forward. So all the clinical information a dentist or a specialist needs to create an evaluation, to build a treatment plan, can all be taken in our software and shared to any other provider that they've invited into the Teledent group. So it allows growing practices, as let's say a location now has 5, 6, 10 locations. You could have one of the founding dentists or a senior dentist not driving to each location anymore, but they could do live video, they could share clinical data, they could help those younger associates treatment plan. They could also take any of that stuff and share it directly to a patient now, and they could do a video consult with the patient, loop them in. They could have their hygiene force go working off-site, seeing patients in different settings, corporate campuses, nursing homes, school programs, really taking that highest cost of that kind of approach of being the dentist and keeping the dentist in the office, but having this other workforce out there seeing patients, making it, there's a lot of talk about access to care. We see it as also convenient access to care. Like, make it easy for people to get connected to a dentist, and then they're going to come in for the bigger treatment needs that they have. So we're really a company that does 2 main things well: intraoral cameras in every op in a traditional practice setting, and then groundbreaking teledentistry software that's kind of a game changer as far as the opportunities it creates for practices and programs.
So how do you, you've been going in technology for a long time. You were with the last big boom. You were out there in Silicon Valley during the technology boom, which is about 90. I always think of it like 94 when Amazon went public till it crashed March 2000. When you started looking at teledentistry, I mean, even smart Zuckerberg bought Oculus for $2 billion, and nobody thinks that was a good idea. But he bought Instagram for $1 billion, and that was like the home run of all home runs. How do you set up the metrics to know that if this teledentistry thing's a good bet, it's really going to take off and not be the Oculus Rift of dentistry?
It's a good question. I think the market's evolving. There's challenges facing dentists that weren't there 20 years ago. I think the change in compensation, the emphasis in preventive care, the opportunities to see the patients, the 60% of Americans who don't see a dentist every year, how do we tap into that opportunity? And I think between the Progressive Practice Acts, common sense legislation, as things are moving to allow dental care to get into more settings and not be in that traditional four-walled practice like it had been, I think that's the opportunity with teledentistry, of cloud-based software, ease of connecting to new patients, kind of just increasing the number of ways and places where a patient can start their journey of getting dental care. So it might be cleanings and whitenings, right, in a way that's really convenient to them. It might be setting up something in a school so that of the thousands of kids in a school district who might not have a dental home or a pediatric dentist or anything, this is a touch point, and it's an opportunity for a practice to get someone out there and kind of turn that screening or preventive care into a new patient in the practice. So for us, the metrics are really a combination of, one, naturally, how many groups and practices are using Teledent, but also how much we start seeing these innovative practice models come up where they're doing mobile, they're creating different approaches, and they're doing that enabled by technology. I think another cool part, Howard, is really with telemedicine, you see that adoption. You see patients craving it. You want the convenience. You want the expertise of a clinician. What's interesting about dentistry is dental still needs a butt in a chair. They need a patient to go see the provider to get the work done. It's not you're going to get a prescription called in without ever physically seeing a provider. We just want to make that whole opportunity and process a lot easier for patients so that they can find doctors that are tech savvy, that are thinking outside of the box, making it convenient, which is something patients want, and then providing that expertise in a way that's really effective. That's not just this removed, go search online, try to get some advice and figure out what you need. You've got to go in to get, wet fingers, taking care of the treatment needs you have. We think this is a really cool way to make that happen a little more easily.
You have a big fan out here where I live, Phoenix, Arizona, Elaine Mamola, Smiles by Delivery. What's she doing with your product?
She's got a cool approach where they have a mobile hygiene program. They also do on-site dental. Arizona, there's a few retired people out there. So what she's able to do is she'll provide screenings on site at nursing homes, at community centers, at senior living facilities, even retirement communities. Her hygienists or her assistants go out and take pictures. They show the images to the patients so that they know what's going on. And then she's able to share that treatment plan with the adult child of, let's say, a nursing home resident. And the child then talks to the dentist and Elaine and her team, and they look at everything, they see the need for treatment, and then they're able to authorize services directly to Smiles by Delivery, who then goes back out and provides restorative. And anything a little more complex, they're able to do a referral out to the specialist.
And, this is what really excites me because, I grew up with 5 sisters and a brother. I had 4 kids. I mean, it's family first, business second. And, when dentists work 4 days a week and they're closed Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And 8.5% of the emergency room visits in the state of Arizona are all odontogenic in origin. The 4% of Americans finish out their life in a nursing home where it's well documented they're getting one root surface cavity a month, and they're all untreated. As dentistry gets more challenging for the dentist provider, more dental schools, more government involvement with reimbursements and all that stuff. Yeah, I know all the bad stuff upwind that downstream that we're swimming into, but man, for the patient, it's got to be exciting. I mean, our losses oftentimes are big benefits for the customer. I mean, when I'm laying in a nursing home with 9 root surface cavities, I would love it if somebody came in there and could do teledentistry and paint them with silver diamine fluoride or that. Or, what's the alternative? They just walk in there and shoot you?
We're not pitching that, but and Arizona is a great state because the Practice Act allows it to specifically defines telehealth technology to allow a service to be provided by a dentist. So we have a program working with us, and this is a private practice, group practice, where they're opening up offices that just have hygienists working in them. So they can go into high traffic areas.
Where's this at? What's it called?
It's in Tucson.
Arizona?
Yeah. And so they're able to get hygienists who are supervised by the dentist through teledentistry, but they're providing preventive services for those patients. And then when there is a need for restorative, now I'll drive the 25 minutes. But it was really easy for me to go get my prophy and evaluation done in a center that's more focused on hygiene. And to your point about family and timing, that office can be open from 7 a.m. till 9 p.m., right? When people are not working, when kids don't have to be taken out of school, and employers don't have to ask people to take time off, and they can go in and get the preventive part done. And then the doctor's able to evaluate them remotely, share the treatment plan. And when they do come in, they know what they're coming in for. So it's more efficient for the doctor, and it's super convenient for the patient.
There's a Twitter I follow. It's called @SeniorSmiles. And it's 1 in 10 seniors die of dental neglect. And it's right out here in Surprise, Arizona. You know anything about that one?
I'm not sure. I think it's another kind of mobile elder care.
So what's the one in Tucson you're talking about?
That's called Aris Family Dental. So
spell it.
AERIS.
AERIS Family Dental.
Yeah, we work with Dr. Lan Allen.
And they have a hygiene only. Aris Family Dental is a hygiene only business model.
So they've got mainly practices that are full restorative, and they've got approaches where the hygienist can work without a dentist there, and see patients for preventive care, and then do that referral for restorative. And that's something we're starting to see in more and more states as states allow. And we're really big supporters of practice acts that allow hygienists to see patients, do the services that are needed, where they're communicating with the dentist. The technology allows dentists not to see hygienists as a threat, but to really see, just like in a private practice, hygienists are creating opportunity. I shouldn't say that. They're identifying patients that need additional treatment, and the dentist comes in at the end of their appointment for a prophy. They're doing the exam, and then they're rescheduling that restorative work that's been identified by the dentist. So what we want to do is take that model and say, well, why don't we do the preventive anywhere and then refer in the restorative back to the dentist? So dentists are focused on higher value restorative, and they can kind of spread out their workforce to see patients that may not find them through traditional marketing approaches, but they're going to find them by being the most convenient, high-quality preventive care provider with then an easy referral in for restorative.
So let's talk about the 400-pound elephant in the room, and that is, Smiles Direct did an IPO this year, and they were kind of talking like you, where we're going to use technology, and we're going to use technology and make orthodontics faster, easier, higher quality, cheaper, whatever. But they decided in their protocol to not work with the existing orthodontic profession like Invisalign went out of their way to. And like when Noble BioCare came out, I mean, Brandmark at first, he would only talk to oral surgeons. And then it was like, you know, the periodontists were the next untouchables and the dentists were last. But, you know, they worked in the pecking order. What do you think Smiles Direct Club had good teledentistry technology and knowledge and was headed in the right direction, just politically didn't realize that, you know, don't underestimate when you go to battle. I mean, any country can take you out. And when they started launching lawsuits against orthodontists in Canada and the United, and I thought, oh my God, really? There's 50 states. They all have a dental society. They all have a lobbyist. They all have a lawyer. And your best idea was to draw blood first? Really? What was your next best idea? So do you think Smiles Direct had great technology and just were clueless in rolling it out? As their IPO stock price is down 60%, so it's not just my opinion, it's dollars and cents.
So I think home aligner companies came upon a real consumer need, that consumers were looking for a more affordable way to do that. I think my focus is really on making sure a patient's connected to a provider. I think there's a ton of opportunity to do that. I think when certain aspects of treatment planning and they're not connecting physically, I think there's a challenge for the patient. And we are big supporters of making sure there's a dentist, an orthodontist, a specialist who the patient directly can interact with. They have an encounter with them, and there's a way for that to allow life to be more convenient for the patient when they're getting that treatment. So in working with some orthodontists, we have approaches where they're managing multiple locations, they're providing virtual consults with it, they're engaging with them after they leave the office to take care of it. But clearly they've identified something that patients are interested in. And I think to our approach, which is really on the preventive and restorative side, we want to encourage patients to have that convenience, but make it accessible for private practices, group practices, DSOs, public health programs to bring the convenience that patients want. And I think that's the cool aspect of technology is, can you bring that without sacrificing any clinical expertise, but really making it super convenient, super easy for a patient to connect to your practice or program.
So you have these kids come out of dental school. They're $285,000 student loans, and their best idea is to borrow other people's money to $350,000 and then stop there and try to pay it back, making $100,000 a year less as an associate doesn't own their office. And they do that for about 5 years till they finally realize if you borrow $350,000 other people's money, you got to borrow another $750, buy your own damn office, have skin in the game to get the first $300 payback. That's a whole nother episode. But when they finally get that dental office, they want to buy. I think of the nucleus of the digital world is the practice management software. If she was working for Bob Fontana right now and Aspen, and she's going to build her own office, is there a practice management software would you think, if you could reduce the list to one, what would you tell her?
I don't know that I can do that.
Now, is that because of channel conflict? And if it's channel conflict on my show, always say it. I mean, I'm not going to ask you to say something that offends half your customers.
I think there's definitely a movement toward the cloud. I understand why some practices are still using server-based practice management suites. I think it varies depending on what type of practice you are. Our goal with Teledent is really to integrate into that so that as you have a teledentistry workflow, you're seeing patients in these different approaches, Teledent's going to integrate with those practice management suites. For me personally, and our goal as a company is, as practice management evolves more toward, I would say in dental, there's this legacy of more isolated technology. We're looking for it to become a little bit more in line with EHR standards, that integration's a lot easier. There's more of a trend toward that, even from traditional private practices that want to send a text message reminder to a patient about their appointment. That takes some level of integration, which has evolved a lot over the past 10 years. And I think the next step for that is really going to be more openness, more exchange of data, and ease of integration across multiple tools that a practice needs to use to thrive, to be convenient, and to kind of adapt.
So the first thing that in this explanation was that you don't know why they each one have their own servers and all that stuff. Why does it not move to the cloud? So is your first requirement to these young kids is that you think it's all going to the cloud and they should ride that curve? I mean, if you were consulting your own 25-year-old daughter who's just going to start her own dental business, and she's gonna, would you tell her to start with cloud?
I think it depends on what their goal is, but I think as practices evolve into multiple locations, if that's the goal of the provider, then to me it's helpful. It's a little bit more scalable, and you're able to kind of continue to get updates. And as long as you've got the security behind it, the ease of use behind it, and for us, naturally, the integration, that's going to be ideal. I think there's a lot of challenges with imaging that become that have gotten a lot better, but I would think that's the approach. One thing I should say, a lot of the younger dentists coming out of school are very interested. American Dental Student Association had a mandate for teledentistry education. We talked to a lot of young dentists who are very comfortable in technology. They're open to a different approach to starting a practice. So we do see this really big uptick of young dentists who are looking for a different approach of growing a practice, of reaching patients, also finding a way to kind of balance a feel-good aspect of serving their community, but also growing their private business. So we've got a great provider in Texas, which is a relatively restrictive Practice Act state, but what they're able to do is they've got 5 locations now, and they use teledentistry to allow them to go into community schools. They do screenings, they take pictures. That can be with a dental assistant. It doesn't have to be with a hygienist. And then they're taking that treatment plan and then sharing that with family members. So they're now enmeshed in the community, right? Not only kids are getting these screenings, but teachers, faculty, they all want screenings too. And the practice is growing because he's tapping into this audience of patients who need a dental home. They just needed someone to be convenient and come to them. So we're seeing more and more of that, of an emphasis on preventive care, on identification, different business models that aren't just borrowing more money, buying the practice, or going to work in a big group. I think those are still happening, and I think it's going to continue to. But the technology and the market is changing enough that there's these new opportunities to think a little bit differently, position your practice a little bit differently, and still serve patients and really grow a practice.
You're amazing. I mean, you have the Teledent mobile app. So his website's MouthWatch. I mean, it's an intro camera, the MouthWatch. Teledent mobile app. Your dental care is going places. And you have the whole kit and caboodle. It's a heavy-duty hospital-grade locking caster, strong metal powder coater frame, computer and keyboard, adjustable height keyboard, work surface. How's that? When did you first sell a mobile app? How much does it cost? How's that going?
Yeah, so we came out with the mobile app. A lot of the programs we work with on teledentistry end up being mobile or portable programs. So we work with some great manufacturers of portable equipment. That was a partnership that we did with DentalWorks, where we saw some settings like nursing homes, schools that have health clinics in them, hospitals, where they wanted a fully portable dental operatory. Also, a private practice could buy that. If they didn't want to plumb out a whole new operatory, it's a full restorative or preventive kit with a computer on it that allows for virtual consults. But when you've got a hygienist, great. If you've got a dentist, great. They can do the full restorative work, high-powered suction, and if they need to wheel it from one room to another, they just unplug it and move it. So that we built in response to really how we saw programs evolving, that they needed to be mobile, they needed to be flexible, and whether it's a suitcase unit and a pop-up chair, all the way to something like that, which can bring in a portable chair and you've got a full dental operatory. It's been working really well. That price is usually around $15,000, but there's a range of portable that can start very low, that $4,000 or $5,000 to get kind of a preventive care kit out there.
a lot of times in dental school, you know, they come out $285,000 student loans, but then they go back to grad school and they become a specialist for another 3 years. So now they're at 500,000, and then they were next to some hottie in their class and married that person, and she's in the same boat. So now they're babies. They're 27 and they're $1 million in debt. And then their best idea is to come out and say one's an orthodontist. Say they're an orthodontist. You know, they're going to go buy a $500,000 piece of land, build a $500,000 building, and get another $1.5 million in debt. And sometimes I look at these people like, say an endodontist. God, you got out of school, you want to go to LA, but LA's so crowded. Why all this extra debt? Why don't you just call the 5 biggest dental offices in LA and say, I'll come in and do your endo for 50-50? No, so with all that profit is a return on no investment except for your initial cost. And then what you're saying is, hell, for just 15 grand, you could have a mobile dental operatory, and you could just go to nursing homes. I know in Arizona right now, you could go to any nursing home, and you couldn't do all the dentistry in a month in any nursing home. And, so this is really starting to become a great business idea.
And I think even to your point on the endodontist, if that endodontist is using Teledent or teledentistry technology, they can do live consults to each of those locations that they're visiting. They can communicate with the patient, they can communicate with the dentist so that their day is efficient as well. So when you've got this hub and spoke model of a specialist who's traveling to all these locations, right now they're going in, they don't really know what's happening for the day that they're scheduled all of their endo appointments, right? Or their perio patients. This way they've communicated with the patient, they know what's happening, they're more efficient, the patient feels engaged with them. It's not just show back up and you'll meet this doctor for the first time. So we're really seeing that of like, let me extend my expertise and my convenience into all of these settings that I can then go in, provide the service that I do, and be just as effective. And then the next day, I know it's going to be on my schedule the next day. I've already met some of the patients virtually, and the office is ready. Everything's evaluated and taken care of.
I don't, your features on what this intraoral camera does, it's like, I don't even understand. I mean, half the features you're talking about, I feel bad because like, I don't know what they are. You want to explain some of those?
On the intraoral camera?
Yeah.
Well, the camera's really straightforward. It shouldn't be that, it's really just a easy to use fixed focus camera, single button capture, bright LEDs, really accurate color for soft tissue, hard tissue. And then it's got the button that captures within whatever software you use, Dexis, EagleSoft, XDR, Apteryx, anything you can think of.
Open Dental?
Open Dental, you can acquire images, VixWin, anything in the market, we're really integrating directly into that. And dentists love that part, that it's capturing. There's some other cameras that are more expensive and trickier to use in that you're launching their software, capturing images in their software, and then you have to import them into whatever your x-ray software is. So for us, people love that it's kind of within the patient record. They snap a couple of pictures, they show the patient on a live screen. We do have other software. If there are practices that don't have x-ray software or digital imaging, we make something called Exam Tab. They can use that to present cases, print out a treatment plan with images for a patient. And then Teledent is really where it's evolving of, now I'm taking these pictures, how can I not only store them clinically for my office's use, but how can I extend that to a patient? So of the 30 images I took, there's 4 key images that I want to show the patient. Let me take those, build a visual treatment plan in Teledent, and share that to a patient. So they log in, they see it, they could talk about it, ask any questions, and then they're game to come in for treatment. And it really, I think, to your point, it really does reduce that feeling of selling, right? A patient sees it, they get it. They didn't go to dental school. They didn't know how to read a radiograph. They see a picture, they know what you're talking about.
So back to those features, though. I obviously understand all of this. I'm just asking for the viewers. Live streaming visual evaluations.
So that's more on Teledent. Mm-hmm. So on Teledent, we do the ADA defined in CDT codes. There's 2 CDT codes for teledentistry. One is synchronous and one is asynchronous. So synchronous is what we're doing now, a live video consult. And with Teledent, I could plug in an intraoral camera and you could be in your office and I could be out with a patient, and you could be seeing the live video feed of the intraoral camera, talking to the patient, talking to the provider who's off site, and basically guiding them, taking snapshots while they're looking around. That's called a synchronous consult. So that's very popular in medical. It's less popular in dental because dentists are busy. So for you to hop out of your operatory and go do a live consult, that's going to take a little more time. Then what we call asynchronous or store and forward is when the provider is with the patient, they're taking all of the photos, charting, clinical data, that's syncing up to the cloud. And now the doctor gets a notification and they could review it and build a treatment plan or communicate with the patient about what they see. So those are the two main ways teledentistry is handled, either live or store and forward.
And when you're on Dental Town, what do you think is the general temperature of the attitudes and opinions of teledentistry? What do you think is at in their minds?
Yeah, good question. So I think there's a misperception. I think some people think teledentistry is really about home aligners. We do a lot to educate that it's really about opportunity to connecting to new patients and adding efficiency to programs, public health programs. Or I think it's really a perception that it's limited to, the Alaskan rural consult to an oral surgeon to save someone a 4-hour drive or flight. I think that's where it had started, but it's really evolved to just be a part of digital workflow that allows patients, no matter where they are, to connect to providers wherever they are. So you might see a city where it's just a matter of someone's busy. Someone doesn't have time to take 2.5 hours out of their day, go to the dentist for a look-see appointment or for a consult. Let's do that virtually. Let's make it really easy, get that convenient connection to the dentist, and then loop them in when they do need the appointment. Everyone knows what's happening and everyone's expectations are set.
One of the problems when you're an early adopter and you break out is you didn't realize that you broke out ahead of your vendors. Like take malpractice dental insurance. There's dentists that once they informed their malpractice that they were just going into nursing homes got dropped. What does the malpractice people are they getting on? Are they starting to understand teledentistry?
Yeah, it's actually reassuring for us. They look to practice acts. So as long as practice acts allow either general supervision for hygienists to see patients off-site, make them new patients of record. As more states define teledentistry, that helps as far as clarification. But there's, we've had some interesting conversations. On the carrier side, there's been some concern from dental boards or providers who feel like this is an opportunity for fraud. This is an opportunity for evaluations, limited or comprehensive evaluations being done remotely that never take place. So what we've seen from that on the carrier side, is no, we're detecting fraud whether you like it or not. Whether it's done via teledentistry or you're just saying you're going into the operatory or not, we're able to find those things. So malpractice carriers, they're really looking and saying, if a practice act allows this, we're supporting that practice act. So if it can be offsite, mobile, if you go into a nursing home, and I think one thing that's great about teledentistry is it would be really challenging in certain settings to provide that supervision or authorization of services without telehealth technology. So if a dentist needs authorization before, if a hygienist needs authorization before a dentist, before they can apply silver diamine fluoride or an interim restoration, teledentistry technology allows that authorization to happen and be documented. So that's really allowing a lot more dentists, the more we talk with them, to see this allows this to work, right? I'm now supervising my hygienist. I'm supervising another provider. I'm engaged in what's happening, as opposed to I find out later that day or the next day, and then I'm just maybe reviewing a note. I'm not even seeing visual images of what was happening. So I think it really does bridge that connection for supervision and allow better communication.
So I know you're a big dude on the lecture scene in this space, teledentistry and all this stuff. Have you run into Mark Ackerman? We had him on the show about teledentistry.
Yeah, so I was on a panel at the Teledentistry Association's meeting, and I think it was interesting. It was really a lot of the attendees there were in the public health space because that's kind of the biggest area where it's been adopted and implemented. And then I think there's some confusion about home aligners and, ortho and teleortho versus teledentistry. So yeah, we've met and, we've talked a bunch of times.
So you keep coming back to clear aligners. Do you think this clear aligner industry kind of tarnished the image of teledentistry?
I think it created some confusion. I mean, personally, I would love it if it was called teleortho because that's what I see. And I think a lot of dentists heard it and IPO and news, and it was, really covered a lot. We just see teledentistry as really this broad opportunity that works for public health programs. It works for private practices. It works for group practices. And then there's this consumer-facing model, which I think exists and I think it serves a need. That's not the space we're in. We're really about keeping the dentist at the middle of teledentistry. We want them engaged. We want them communicating with their patients. We don't want to have a program where a patient really can't get connected to the patient or to the provider that they're going to deal with. We want hygienists seeing patients. We want specialists seeing the patient, that I could have a video conference and consult with the provider that I'm ultimately going to see or is probably going to be in the office that I'm going to go to.
So how long have you been on this teledentistry wagon? I mean, how long has this been your passion?
So we started 8 years ago. Our first product was, I would say, more of a remote patient monitoring approach to teledentistry, where the patient was using the camera at home and sharing that with their established dentist. We relaunched Teledent 3 years ago. So 3 years ago was really when we kicked into how we see providers communicating with providers and patients on teledentistry. And we're very passionate about it. We think it's a huge opportunity. We love having the cameras out there as a way for people to get comfortable documenting images and clinical needs. But the platform is really, a lot of our energy and effort is going into showing this broad opportunity that I think is a game changer for private practices. We see so many public health programs thriving with it. And there's a lot of different approaches. We're not putting an app on your phone just yet where a patient's paying for a consultation. We believe if you can get that patient into a setting where they can get, clinical expertise, that's ideal. But to charge a patient for a virtual consult, for them to be told that they need to go see a dentist and pay again, that it doesn't sit as well with me. I think if you can educate a patient, it would be frustrating to me if I was a patient and I have pain in my molar, and I'm paying to be told that there's pain in your molar and you need to go see a dentist, and I got to go pay again for it. So I think there's a cool range of opportunities with it. I love where we're at. We really want to kind of break open the four walls of a practice, get them into the community, get them in to see those patients that they're not currently seeing and that they're not currently marketing to, but that can help grow their practice. So that might look like a nursing home. It might look like a school. It also might look like pop-up corporate in a corporate campus where they just need convenient connection to care. And it's not about directly connecting to the patient in some settings, but it's about a referral. We work with specialists who offer Teledent licenses to their referring GPs. So they're making it really easy to share all of that clinical data, share the referral. Don't give the patient a business card and say, go call this surgeon when you have a chance. Let's get that information to the surgeon who can then follow up with the patient and really close the loop. We also do a lot with medical dental settings. So a pediatrician's office, a hospital, and emergency room diversion, all of those ways to stop, to enable a medical provider to refer to dental and not just say, that's out of my realm and I don't know what to do with it. Those are key ways that I think you can improve patients' experience. You can lower the cost of healthcare, in a bigger way, and really make it a better experience for everyone involved.
Well, you're out. Where are you living now?
We're in New Jersey.
New Jersey. I mean, so you're right next to New York, and when the New York Times starts talking about, something's going on, it says, "You mean I don't have to show up? The promise of telemedicine." And even the New York Times is all over this. I mean, it's just amazing. It comes down to money's the answer. What's the question? Availability, affordability, can they go in? This HAS technology usually can solve all 5 digits. It's faster, it's easier, it's higher quality, it's lower in cost, and it's smaller. And so many times dentists come to me with some idea, and the first thing out of the gate is it's not cheaper. In fact, this new technology is so value added, it's actually going to make the whole thing more expensive. And you're just like, it's like when a dentist wants to meet you to lunch and 3 minutes into it, you realize it's a multi-level marketing Amway pitch. I mean, you just don't know if you should throw up or start crying because, how can you not understand with multi-level marketing that when you intentionally design 6 middlemen, while Walmart did the opposite and won by getting rid of all the middlemen? What do you not understand here? But you said specialists. There's 10 specialties. Where is this going to be the most weighted advantageous technology among our 10 specialties, and where will it be least weighted or not make an impact?
So on the referral side of things, you mentioned endo. Endodontists have a really high success rate in referrals from the GP to the endo. Because someone's in significant pain, they're making that appointment and they're following up on it. On cases where we picture a case where a general dentist identifies a need for a couple of implants, right? That need for an implant in a broken referral model is the dentist saying, look, you're going to need a couple of implants. Here's the card of the oral surgeon we recommend. Call her up, go into her office, and then when she's done placing the implants, we'll get a letter a couple of weeks later, and then we'll follow up with you to schedule up the restoration. We see that changing. We want that patient, when there's a need for those implants, that the patient and the GP could talk to the referring oral surgery office in real time, like we're doing now. They could see intraoral images if they need it. Clinical data, radiographs, CT scans, whatever it is, can be uploaded through Teledent. The oral surgeon's office now has all of that patient's information, so the doctor can send that patient home who now knows a little bit more. Maybe they've met the surgeon or at least their treatment coordinator, and they can go home, and now the oral surgeon's office is going to call them, set up an appointment. They know what they need. The doctors can talk about a treatment plan and an approach so that they're in the loop. And then the patient comes into the oral surgery office, gets the implants placed. They notify through Teledent. Right after that's placed, the doctor gets notified that the implants were placed, and the GP who's had that patient for years can now call them and say, how are you feeling? How's your healing going? They've got the ball, and they're kind of engaged in this care coordination. So instead of just being, here's the card, go get them, call me when you're done, now there's a loop, right? There's this closed loop of a care team. Patients love it. Providers are going to love it. There's an easier workflow. We see so many specialists who are getting FedEx, mail, AOL emails. They're getting all kinds of stuff coming into them. And their front office team is really trying to coordinate and wrangle and scan all of this information. Let's share it all through Teledent, and let's allow that communication to happen.
The most interesting study I ever saw is that only 17% of your time dealing with the dentist, from making the appointment, driving to the office, sitting in the waiting room, being seated, only 20 minutes or 17% of the total patient's time is with the dentist.
The dentist, yeah.
So teledentistry can make it 83% faster, easier, higher quality, lower cost. And I've been doing teledentistry. I think it was invented by Steve Jobs when he came out with the iPhone. I mean, I always go around and court all the pharmacies and the emergency rooms. And I go in there and I give them cookies. And as long as you're pressing the flesh and making sure, because they love to clear out an emergency room. Is there anybody here just for a toothache? They're saying, okay, Howard across the street at today's dental, you don't need an appointment. You can walk right in. We cannot do a root canal. We can't pull a tooth. If this is a toothache, because they want to get rid of all that stuff. And then when they go to the pharmacist, I always tell the pharmacist, I said, if someone asks you, what's better for a toothache? Is it Bufferin? Is it Advil? Is it Oragel? Dude, just pull out your iPhone, call me, FaceTime me, and hand the patient the iPhone, and it is amazing what I can diagnose over an iPhone of some guy standing at the counter of Walgreens. And then what's so motivating for that is in dentistry, all the non-pain stuff doesn't have high compliance. You talked about the endodontists have the highest compliance because their patients are motivated by pain. You're not making bank on cleanings, exams, x-rays, and fillings, but toothaches and extractions and some guy's FaceTiming me and he's across the street at Walgreens. I mean, teledentistry has been working for me for a decade. So what's the difference between an intraoral camera and an iPhone on teledentistry?
You can't really shove it in there as far. Yeah, I think it's just kind of clinical accuracy. I think iPhones are great for kind of extra oral and getting a general idea. If you want to see a magnified image of a rear molar or kind of a lingual surface, you're going to want an intraoral camera. And I think the goal is, and forget about HIPAA compliance. I mean, we want to make sure when someone's using Teledent that all that PHI is protected and it's secure between the providers and the group. So yeah, I think it's effective. I think a lot of providers are using iPhones for, some documentation, for some case presentation shots, but intraoral is just going to really get more clinical detail that's going to help with kind of more complex assessments.
And I also think that, you talked about teledentistry, it's opportunities for private practices, public health programs, specialists, but medical dental integration. That's a big one for me because I've been to the other countries and you're not allowed to say anything good about the centrally planned economies of Russia and China and all that stuff. But man, I thought the Russians, they had the first satellite. They landed the first human-made thing on the moon. Wasn't a live human, but they had the first woman in space, first dog in space, all that stuff like that. But dentistry, stomatology was just a branch of medicine. I mean, you could be a dermatologist, you could be a gynecologist, an ophthalmologist, or a stomatologist. And what I liked about them is they were all on the same page. They all had classmates. They were just integrated more. And then if you got burned out or because dentistry is very unique in that it's all surgery. I mean, 90% of the 1 million MDs today are not going to numb someone up and take a razor blade to them. They just sit there and look at data. So I got homies that, lost an eye, arthritis, paralyzed. And if they said, you know what, I want to go back and I want to be a pediatrician. Hell, they got to go all the way back to zero. It's just there's just no flexibility in our stubborn system. And then you're sitting there working on a patient. I've seen this so many times where, they're all worried about, grandma, she might have gum disease. Well, she didn't get a flu shot and 30,000 Americans died last year of the flu. Why didn't you? I'm more concerned about grandma not having a flu shot than I am that she's got gingivitis or HPV vaccine. Now we're talking about death. So you spent the whole appointment on home care instruction and they don't have an HPV vaccine. They don't have a flu shot. And then when you do missionary dentistry, you're out there in the middle of the jungle and these guys are trying to count the cavities. I'm like, dude, have you looked at his foot? It's the size of a football. And we put him on the table, and he had a piece of metal stuck in his foot. The only thing we could use for a wound was my tennis shoe, filled it up with Paradex. But before we left 4 days later, that kid was running. He went from dragging a lame foot to running and laughing and playing and all this stuff like that. And dentistry, America had the first dental school in Ohio. They had the first dental university in Baltimore, and it was on a separate leg of its own, and it needs to get back with the rest of the body. I mean, I don't know if you're aware of this, but did you notice how humans also have eyes, nose, ears, feet, livers, pancreases? It needs to get more integrated. How do you think specifically teledentistry is going to integrate medical and dentistry more?
Yeah, great point. So for us, it's starting with education. We're doing a really cool program with NYU where in the dental school, they're teaching teledentistry and curriculum. And then what they start doing is they start bringing in nurse practitioners, speech pathologists, nutritionists, pediatricians to kind of get comfortable with an intraoral camera, documenting an oral screening and sharing that information to a dental clinic. So we want to see more of that come into curriculum. And I think a lot of that shift has started of interdisciplinary, where dental students and medical students are starting down the same path and then diverging into their specialties. I think it's then other making it easy in different settings to capture an oral screening. So in a pediatrician's office, in an oncologist's office, in an OBGYN, any of these settings where you're going to see a patient who's at a higher risk, needs to have a perio evaluation, needs to have preventive care provided, those touch points to make it as easy as possible for them to capture images, take some basic information, and make the referral to a dentist. I think that's the way we're going to start seeing more of the kind of medical dental integration happen. I think you're also going to see things like minute clinics, right? You've got patients who are coming in for one thing. They can at least document it. They can assign it to an associated dental group. They can review the patient, follow up with them, and get them in for treatment. Longer game, yeah, I think with value-based healthcare, there's going to be a need for dental care to start identifying other general health and wellness measures and metrics. So it shouldn't just be a health history that lives on its own within a dental practice. It's got to be tied to the general wellness of that patient and other health information about that patient. So it's great to see, I think, things where systemic health, those things are being educated, oral issues are being identified and taught to pediatricians, family practitioners. But we want to see the way to bridge that gap and really start collecting some of that and closing the loop so that a patient who's going in for a medical appointment, if they have an oral health issue, there's an easy referral. There's a seamless referral to the dental care team.
So if someone wants to know more, how do they find out more from you?
They can go to our website, mouthwatch.com. They could call us. They could request a consultation to learn about Teledent and how the platform works. Our cameras are really self-explanatory. You can see some great examples of the images we take, the integrations we have on our website, and just reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you and kind of learn about different practice models, programs, however they're looking to learn about teledentistry, and cameras are just a win-win for everyone.
So when someone goes to buy one, are they buying it? Is your channel direct? Do you sell them on Amazon? Do you only go through dealers, Shine, Patterson, Benco, Burkhardt? How does the shop work?
Yeah, so we're primarily direct. We work with a couple of distributors, but most of the volume that we sell is through our website. You can call our support team, our sales team. And if you're a larger group, we offer kind of some additional services where we're trying to help with education, CE courses, ways to show it's more than about just having a camera. It's about a way to educate patients, how you communicate treatment needs, a little bit more than just an imaging device.
Last week I was in Israel for the whole week and I visited, did 10 podcasts, 10 companies, just had a blast. Their number one question is, when we try to go to America, should we sell? Which channel should we do? Should we go through the distributors, which they all call dental depots? I thought that was interesting. They called them dental depots. Or should they sell direct? And Greater New York meeting, which is right by you, the last 4 years in a row, Amazon's been there. What would you tell dental companies in Asia and Africa and Latin America? Should they sell direct, or should they be on Amazon? Should they go through channels? You've been at this for 8 years and sold 17,000 cameras. You got to be an expert on channel selection. So what's your channel advice?
Yeah, we wanted to go direct because of the price point of our intraoral camera. So we felt like we could convey that message, and we didn't have as much margin to work with as a $4,000, $5,000 camera, but it's really up to the product. I think sometimes, I've met and worked with a lot of reps at different dealers. They do a great job. I think they can bring a whole solution into a practice, and we've got great relationships with them. So to me, it depends. I know for us, with the price point that we wanted to offer, we wanted to work direct, and we wanted to introduce it through conferences, trade shows, and get people going to our website. But the dealers that we work with, they tap into a different audience. And I love that a rep there can kind of bring a whole bunch of solutions to a practice, not just a single device. So for us, dental, direct worked, and then we kind of evolved and grew into working with some distributors, but really depends on the level of expertise and training.
So you're working with a couple of distributors in the United States?
Yeah.
Which ones?
So our cameras are sold through Benco, Darby we just started with, Safco carries them. Lester Dine carries them. So we've got a few great distributors out there who are carrying the cameras, and it's easier for them, especially on like a barrier or protective barrier. So sometimes for a practice, they might buy the cameras from us, but then they're going to a reseller dealer to buy kind of the disposables that they're buying on a regular basis.
You know, it's really weird. Like my dealer, he didn't sell anything in dentistry. Get it? Dealer. That was another dumb joke. But I thought it was a funny joke. Get it? Drug dealer. It's a pun on dealer. But I think it's amazing. Is there anything you wanted to talk about that I didn't mention?
No, I think we covered a lot. I think teledentistry is super exciting to us. The cameras are fantastic. I mean, that is just an easy win. We have so many, like on Dental Town, a lot of the message boards just talk about it's great, every room, really great price, great service. We're really proud of that. And teledentistry is really our passion. We want to see this grow and evolve and open up new doors for practices, give some ideas for new dentists coming out of school for different approaches, create some new revenue opportunities for private practices, be more efficient for public health programs of how they can reach new patients with limited resources. And then for group practices and DSOs to really kind of connect into new opportunities to communicate and collaborate among their team, tap into their communities, and really just kind of change the game of how dental care can be delivered.
I see that you're going to be at the National Mobile Dental Conference, the National Mobile Dentistry Conference, February 28 and 29 in 2020 in Orlando. Yep. What do you know about that meeting? What can you tell us about that meeting?
That's been a really cool effort from some forward-thinking Melissa Turner, who may have been, I think she's been on your podcast, has kind of an iHeart Mobile Facebook group, which has blown up. And really the teledentistry and mobile dentistry is just a perfect fit. I think they're in different settings. It's a lot about hygienists seeing patients and then making referrals to dentists. So she's done a great job with the geriatric tooth fairy in Florida. I forget her name offhand, but they're able to bring a lot of providers together. There's a whole bunch of people speaking on teledentistry because it's such a good fit. And I think that's right before the Chicago Midwinter, and we'll be at the Midwinter Conference as well.
And what do you think you'll do better? What do you think you'll sell more? The next three, you're CDHEA, February, San Jose. What's CDHEA?
That's a California Dental Hygiene Educators Association. So that's just really to help kind of show some of the curriculum about teledentistry that educators want in their hygiene programs. We're in all kinds of shows. We go to hygiene shows, public health shows, dental conferences, telemedicine conferences. We travel a lot because there's a lot of areas where teledentistry comes into play. So where am I going to sell more cameras? At the Midwinter meeting. But I think the group at the National Mobile is kind of a small but growing group of providers who have this different model.
So the National Mobile Dental Conference is talking about mobile practices for your for-profit business, how to create and scale a mobile program, access to care and health equity, cutting-edge clinical software technology and apps, the future of mobile and portable equipment, teledentistry and use case examples, state-specific regulatory and legislative information, compliance for infection, HIPAA, CDC, best practices for team. I think that's actually. And who did you say is behind the whole thing on this?
So Melissa Turner. Yeah, she was on talking about some of their mobile programs and iHeart Mobile Dentistry, which is a Facebook group that she has. Right. And I should say we're doing a contest, so we're going to pay for one mobile provider for their airfare, their lodging, and their registration. And if they go to mouthwatch.com/NMDC2020, they can give a profile of their program and apply for kind of a free ride to get out there to the conference.
Just one thing real quick. So when my homies go to the NMD conference, which is the National Mobile Dentistry Conference, when you look at all the speakers, I mean, it's pretty much all hygienists. And so why do you think it's more hygienists? Is the front lines of teledentistry rolling out mostly with hygienists, dental therapists, things like that, as opposed to dentists?
I think it's a really good fit. I think mobile dentistry can thrive. A lot of dentists don't want to be the one going out to mobile, especially if they're going to do some waiting and trying to figure out what the restorative that they're doing is. So we see a lot of programs where the dentist collaborates with one or multiple hygienists. The hygienists go out first. They're doing the preventive care, billing for that, whether they're billing under their own NPI number or under the associated dentist. And then the dentist might be going out and being mobile and doing restorative, or it might be that they're referring in for the restorative that needs to be done in their brick and mortar practice. But a lot of the mobile stuff is really this team effort between hygienists going out, doing preventive care, doing some cosmetic services, and then a referral to the dentist, or in some cases, they're doing on-site restorative, like the program you mentioned in Arizona. They're sending a dentist on site to do it. It's just easier for certain populations for the restorative to just be done there.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I asked you to come on. You didn't ask me. Teledentistry, last and final question. We're going into 2020. I think everyone's going to see more clearly next year when everybody's 2020. But what's the next biggest thing after this? You've been writing this next big thing for 8 years. What's the next big thing you think that might be peeking around the corner?
I think it's going to be this kind of technology integrating into more settings. There's also some exciting stuff with artificial intelligence coming into teledentistry so that data analysis can happen, that it can kind of help triage and screen for a dentist who can then review where the AI has been integrated. But I think the big heavy lift is really getting it into more and more settings for medical providers to connect with dental colleagues, for all of those kind of barriers to start disintegrating, and really collaboration with the bigger goal of improved healthcare, improved convenience. I think big drivers of value-based healthcare are about emphasizing prevention, about identifying those things. And the big thing that we talk about is really when dentists think about the concern about these different approaches, and I would love to kind of assuage that. I think when you look at how many patients don't see the dentist every year, that's the real opportunity. It's not the competition with the hygienist. It's not reaching into these other settings. Those aren't patients who are coming into a private practice traditionally. We want to find a way to get more patients, more Americans into a dental home. And if that starts by seeing them where it's most convenient for them, fantastic. They're going to need some restorative. They're going to end up in a dental chair. It's not going to be like telemedicine where it's a prescription for a cavity being filled and it's happening remotely. They ultimately need to get into a dental chair for treatment. So let's figure out how to create those opportunities and get them into practices.
Well, actually, I think almost 100% of Americans saw the dentist last year. It was just that most of the time they see him at a bar or at Safeway or filling their car with gas. They need to focus on seeing the dentist in the dental office is what I think you're trying to say. But, hey, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Thank you for all that you're doing, because at the end of the day, our customer is the patient. And yeah, we see the patients that can come into our office Monday through Thursday 8 to 5. But what about the 4% that can't leave the nursing home? What about the ones out in the rural, out in the middle of nowhere? What about the ones that just have more challenges of availability and access? And if it's good for my patient, it's good for dentistry. And you're very good for dentistry. Thank you for all you're doing for dentistry.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Howard. Thanks so much for having me on.
All right. Have a great day.
Take care.